number one, I have a student who is going into high school next year, and we're trying to help the individual with hygiene. They don't like to be pulled out with the EA to work on hygiene. Any recommendations? Totally understandable. So I guess the answer to that would be, I guess, regarding the hygiene stuff, having a discussion with either the individual if they're capable of that discussion, but having a conversation with the actual individual as well as the EA, as well as the parent, and just say, okay, so here's all the things you need to learn. Maybe even ask the kiddo if he's verbal enough, like, okay, so have you heard about hygiene? You know, what is hygiene and what does it mean? And here's all the things related to hygiene. So there's deodorant, there's puberty, there's this, there's that. Seeing if he or she, like the learner, can come up with those answers or some of those answers on his own. Because if you've got the learner as an active participant in your IEP goals, if that's possible, you get more buy-in, right? Just like, you know, if you've got a therapist who's an active participant in your IEP goals, you get more buy-in from them. So if you can get the individual, if the individual's at that level in terms of talking and seeing if you can get the individual to say, you know, oh, I need work on this, or I need work on this, etc. If not, that's fine too. You can probably give them a few prompts like, oh, you know, would you prefer to work on this or this? And giving them some multiple choice answers like that.
You made me think of the ACT stuff also as you were talking. I don't know, again, what their functioning level is like, but if you're comfortable enough getting into like, well, what's your value? And do you value like making friends in high school? Do you value, you know, looking cool or having people think XYZ about you? And if you value those things, then how can we get you there? And this is going to be one of the committed actions to get you there, because one of those is, well, they're not going to want to be friends with you if you know, don't have good hygiene. So if you're comfortable with something like that, then yeah, ACT would be great.
Like I said, if the student can talk, you know, that much. And then, you know, like Shira said, okay, so here's the committed action. Talk to that individual about who's the best person to teach that. Because if the kiddo is embarrassed, like he doesn't want the EA or he doesn't want to be pulled out of class to learn hygiene stuff, totally understandable. Oh my gosh, like rewind to when you were 13 or 14, right? Like, oh, everything was embarrassing. And I would never, ever want to go back there. So, you know, think about that as well. So ask the individual, if you can, you know, when the best time, you know, he or she would like to learn this stuff. Okay, so if you're embarrassed that the EA is going to pull him out during this period, or, you know, friends, can the EA either have, number one, a secret signal to say, hey, like it's time to go now, or the EA, you know, builds it into his break time versus an actual subject or lunchtime or what have you. Or number three, can it be taught at home instead? You know, can it be taught, you know, with parents instead? Because maybe this is something that an outside adult shouldn't be taught. You know, if I were 13 or 14, I'd be absolutely mortified if my teacher was trying to show me how to put deodorant on, right? So there's got to be alternative ways to, you know, when to teach it and who to teach it. And Sherry, you're more into the ACT stuff, but I like that idea too. If they're verbal enough, right? Like what do you value and what's the committed action, for sure. There's also, if they're lower, I don't know, but if they're lower, there's something called, it's a green book. I've got it in my head. Let me Google it and I'll get back to you on that one. It's like, it's called Taking Care of Myself. And it's pretty great. It's a whole bunch of social stories. Not that social stories in and of themselves are effective, but it's a really great way to have the conversation and open that dialogue. And it's got some visuals and stuff in there as well. But Taking Care of Myself is about hygiene, puberty, etc. And then there's a Taking Care of Myself 2 as well. So if they're girls, the American Girl Doll series is really great, but this is for girls. And there's this one, and there's a feelings one, etc. So these are really great. Are they great in and of themselves to just read it and say, okay, now you got it? No, I mean, you've got to practice, but it's really great to have these as a starting basis to open that conversation. Send that link.